Okay. It is Wednesday, October 1st, fiscal year 2026. Fiscal year 2025 is over as of yesterday. Thank you for joining Let's Talk Immigration. We have a lot to cover today. First, a lot of diversity visa 2025 selectees are going to chime in to say, hey, what can I do? If you were not issued a visa, your journey is over. There's no path for being issued a diversity visa after the end of the fiscal year. I'm sorry to share that. Okay. As long as we're talking about the diversity visa 2027 entry period would have normally been announced. However, it's not been announced yet this year. We believe that's because they have to implement two changes to the program. One where they're charging $1 for each entry, which is clearly unlawful. And if I figure out a way to monetize, I'll sue over that. The second one is they have a passport requirement. So they have some software modifications that they need to do before they launch this. So that's probably what the problem is. Okay. Next thing we'll talk about. USCIS has a lot of updates. I'll go through some of them. I haven't studied all of these yet because they're happening so fast. This is a couple weeks ago on Constitution Day. President Trump urged naturalized citizens to honor and respect American law and traditions. Like, you're going to do it anyway, but now Trump is urging you to do it, I guess. But this is part of this thing where they're going to start making it harder to naturalize, and they're going to expect more from people that are naturalized. It's very annoying. Let me share this tab instead. Okay. So they're going to overhaul the test. So I think you're going to have to get more of the questions right, and they're going to add some questions to it also. Some of the sample questions that they talked about adding were added back during the first Trump administration. So they're not really doing anything. They're just announcing that they're doing something that was already done. In that case, they are doing stuff. But there's also a new USCIS guidance from a few days ago on military naturalization. This is something that you really, really want to talk to an attorney about if you are in the military and you are naturalizing. Basically, anyone who's naturalizing now, unlike the old days where it was simple, I recommend you use an attorney because things are serious. They have a new policy out now that's requiring neighborhood checks. So they could go within the last they could talk to your neighbors within the last 5 years, or your coworkers or associates, and get their opinion on whether or not you're worthy of citizenship, whether or not you have good moral character, whether or not you believe in the Constitution and the happiness of the United States. So if you're a green card holder right now, you need to be really nice to your neighbors in a way that maybe before you just ignored them. Maybe now wave hi, bake them a pie, offer to help them with something, be a good neighbor. It's not fair that you're being treated like this, but that's what you got to do. Okay. And I will say that our firm is doing a lot more of representation of people for adjustment of status and naturalization interviews because of the added scrutiny that the government, that the Trump administration is putting into effect lately. And we do offer that service. Okay. And then I just got shared a news article I didn't even know about here. Let me see. Let's read about this. So you'll get ads for spinners. I get these ads all the time. My mother bought me some spinners once, and so now I get these ads like every day, forever. Some Canadian company. Okay, so Trump administration proposes a 4-year limit on international student visas. Um, this is actually from a month ago, so I don't know if this has gone into effect yet, but this would cause problems. This is going to cause harm to the U.S. because a lot of the smartest scientists and engineers and doctors in the country come here for their bachelor's and their master's and their doctorate, or for their, and that it takes more than 4 years to get educated as a professional. So that's unfortunate, like so much of the news we're going to share. Yeah, someone asked any news about the travel ban. Okay, so travel ban litigation. That's what I was getting ready to shift to. We have 7 lawsuits pending challenging the lawfulness of the travel ban. It might be 6. I get confused between 6 and 7. 3 of them are in the District Court of Columbia, 1 in Massachusetts, 2 in California. That's 6. We're going to file 7th soon. Okay. The first one that we filed was, well, I don't know if you could call it the first. The one we filed for the diversity visa selectees, we just had a victory in August where the State Department had to give final decisions and they couldn't use 212F as a final decision. So a lot of visas were actually issued that say subject to the proclamation. But then something cool happened. A lot of visas were issued that got exceptions. One of these was a Somalian family that acquired an Ethiopian passport. Another was, or several of them, more than dozens, I would say, were Iranians who qualified for a minority exception. There are ethnic and religious minorities in Iran, and there's an exception for them. When this first happened, when this ban first went into effect, I didn't know this minority exception was going to be a real thing. And in fact, it wasn't for the first month because they hadn't even done the implementation guidance yet. But since in July, they sent the implementation guidance to the embassies. And now it appears that this is a real thing, that you can get a religious or ethnic minority exception of the travel ban. So that's the developments of what's going on. I would say 2 of my colleagues, meaning not Ready Go Law, and I'm not affiliated with them, are also offering litigation regarding the travel ban. I'll talk about their opportunities, and then I'll talk about our opportunities. Impact litigation, which is Charles Cuck and I think Greg Siskin, I'm not sure who else, Jesse Bless. They are offering 2 group lawsuits challenging the travel ban. One is for students and one is for K1 fiance visas. Okay. So if you're one of those categories and you're interested in participating in a lawsuit, meaning parting with your money to fight the Trump administration on this ban, and you're in those categories, you can go to CUC, go to impact litigation. Okay. Now, let's talk about what Ready Go Law is doing. Go up to the upper tab. We're onboarding right now for family preference category. If you're a client already and you're in CM 539, this case is like CM 539. It's except for the people that missed CM 539. We're not sure what court we're going to file it in. CM 539 was in the Central District of California. We're not sure yet on this one. But if you go to this website, top bar, there's a video where I talk about it in English. Farshad talks about it in Farsi. LC talks about it in Spanish. And Abdullahi talks about it in Somali. The deadline to participate in this lawsuit is October 10th, 9 days from now. Okay. So if you want to participate 9 days, I don't want to hear from people on October 11th saying, hey, what about that group lawsuit? No, you had your chance. Okay. Now is your chance. Onboarding cannot be done in 1 day either. You really have to start it a day before. And the sooner you start it, the better our lawsuit will be. Okay. We're planning on filing this October 21st, 2025. Garrett on our team has already been assigned to prepare that complaint. This lawsuit is just for family preference categories, F1, F2A, F2B, F3, F4. and it's for people from impacted countries of the travel ban. Okay, this is Afghanistan, Yemen, Iran, Somalia, Cuba. There's a few countries I'm leaving out there. Um, but I would like to have a diversity of plaintiffs from multiple of those countries. Okay, you do not have to attend the interview yet, but you must have already submitted the DS-260, and your priority date must be current in Chart A of the Visa Bulletin, the October Visa Bulletin. I went through those requirements in reverse. Sorry about that. Okay, so that's the lawsuit. Ready Go Law is onboarding right now to challenge the travel ban. I would say, though, we do have plans to do some other lawsuits, okay? If you go over to our lawsuit interest list, we have 3 interest lists. One is for employment-based interest list, because I know that there are many employment-based visa applicants that are stuck behind the travel ban that are interested in challenging it. We've got an interest list for, skip that for a second, for the DV 2026 selectees subject to the travel ban who are interested in challenging it. And I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, well, wait a second. If you get the same result that you got in Thine versus Trump, that they're going to have visas issued that they can't enter. And I have 2 responses to that. First, we're more ambitious. We don't want the same result we got in Thine versus Trump. We want a judge to rule that this ban is unlawful under the non-delegation doctrine. Okay, so that's our first goal. The second thing is you should consider whether or not you're possibly eligible for an exception of that travel ban, like a ethnic or religious minority in Iran, for example, because that could lead you to being issued a visa, like we sue, and then you end up being issued a visa with an exception. So you'd have to qualify for the exception. The lawsuit's not going to qualify you for the exception, but it could speed up the adjudication where it happens. Okay, the third lawsuit I want to talk about, of course, we're not onboarding these 3 lawsuits yet. These are just interest lists where we're collecting who wants to be notified when we do offer them. The third one I want to talk about is the IR5 interest list. So you all may not know, we file individual mandamus lawsuits for IR5s for every visa category, but a lot of them are IR5s. People trying to get their parents into the U.S. as soon as possible, usually so they can help babysit their kids, but not always. Sometimes they just miss their parents. So those lawsuits are effective, but they're not that affordable. They do cost more. So every 6 months or so, I like to offer a group lawsuit for people who want their parents into the U.S., primarily Iranians, but it could be, Somalia. It could be anybody. But in this lawsuit, I just want people who are from countries impacted by the travel ban. Let me tell you why. In the travel ban, there is a clause that says these categories are accepted, except they have to show clear and convincing evidence of family relationship. And then it says in parentheses, i.e. DNA. Usually it's just pictures. Well, they can't use Section 212F to put requirements like that on visa issuance. That's not lawful. So I want to challenge that. And that gives us a path to putting a group of IR5s together. So as long as all these IR5s are from travel ban countries, we can do this. So it'll be a more affordable lawsuit. So anyway, it says register here, but really it's just sign up for the interest list so that we'll notify you when the onboarding starts. Oh, over here, Yasmin says she joined the interest list for DV 2026. That's great. So I do have an update about DV 2026 that I wanted to mention. It's a weird update. I filed a lawsuit a few months ago because of DV 2025 left out a country. They left out UK. It was really weird. And after we filed the lawsuit, they checked, they found out that they did, and they let some people, UK entries, not all of them, they let some of them know, hey, you were selected. They let them know at the last minute, 1 month before the end of the fiscal year. Remarkably, I was able to forward the ones that we found, thank you, Brett Simon, to the government attorney, and they were able to complete their processes, the ones that I know of, at embassies like London are, and then a couple in the US who did adjustment of status. So that was great. But I don't want to dismiss that lawsuit. In fact, we have amended that complaint and added some people that from the UK that entered for DV 2026 because they didn't announce any DV 2026 winners either. Now, we have filed the amendment complaint last night, and since then, we have learned that at least one, but maybe more, DV 2026 entrants from UK have been, when they go to their entry website now, like magic, they are selected. So maybe there are UK selectees for DV 2026. We're still exploring that situation to know how to move forward. Okay. It feels like the government's done something shady here, like waited till we amended our complaint before they do something behind the curtain. But I don't know that yet. We have to wait and see. So that's DV20, diversity visas and travel ban litigation. What's the next thing I got to talk about? I got to talk about courts, the United States courts. Okay. So the Congress failed to pass a budget that kept the government open last night. So the government is doing some furloughs and some non-essential employees are not leaving. The government's not going to be offering some services. Probably parks are going to close. How does that impact immigration? Great question. Okay, so like, I'll start with the space that we work. The State Department, during the last furlough that I lived through in 2018 to 2019, they didn't make any difference. That nothing changed. What has happened this time is the websites already say that there's some things that they're not going to be doing, but they don't say what those things are. So I'm a little worried about this. Okay, doesn't make sense because State Department's funded by fees that come from the applicants. So what does this have to do with them? I don't know, but I think that there could be some impacts at the embassy level. In the meantime, we have several. I don't know how many, more than 100, probably a couple hundred pending lawsuits that are potentially impact because some courts are doing a master general order. They're putting all deadlines in the lawsuit on hold until the government reopens. The courts that have done this include, I'll go ahead and start with the one that impacts us the most, the District Court of Columbia. So if you have a mandamus lawsuit pending right now at the District Court of Columbia, the deadlines in that lawsuit, since the United States is a party and the government shut down, have been put in abeyance. There's been a stay of all civil proceedings involving the United States because of the lapse in appropriations. This was Judge Boasberg that issued this 2-page order, I believe this morning, October 1st. So this impacts a lot of our clients. I haven't got around to letting all of our clients know about this individually. That's on my list to do. But if you're watching and you have a pending mandamus lawsuit, whether it's with our firm or with another firm in DC, your lawsuit just got put on hold. That does not mean your immigration benefit is on hold, your visa application or your USCIS petition. But it does mean that the lawsuit's on hold. Okay. Now, DC is not the only court to do that. Other courts to do that include the Southern District of Ohio, the Western District of Kentucky, the Northern District of Illinois. Those are just the ones that I remember seeing this morning. To my knowledge, California hasn't followed this. Okay, and I'm just hoping that California doesn't follow this. I'm hoping that, in fact, we have a hearing on a case in LA on Friday, October 3rd. And I emailed the government attorney. I said, are you going to be there? And he's like, as of now, I think I am. So everything looks like it's moving forward in California. So this does not mean that we are not filing mandamus lawsuits. We will continue to file mandamus lawsuits, except if the government stays closed, it means that the mandamus lawsuit will take longer to have an effect, probably, because the government's deadline to file a responsive pleading is 60 days after the complaint is filed normally. Under these orders that put things on hold, it could be longer. So we don't know for sure. Okay. Am I done talking about the courts? I am, except I just want to say this is a big headache and that Congress has one job. It's to pass a budget so this doesn't happen, and they didn't do it. Okay. Sammy asks, is DV 2026 officially opened yet? Well, when you say opened, I think you mean our DV 2026 selectees going to interview. Yeah, there were interviews scheduled for today. So I expect there's probably been a DV 2026 visa issued already. We wouldn't know because you can't really check the SEAC for DV 2026 until January 1st because of a bug that's always been there. But yeah, I have no reason to believe that DV 2026 is not open. Okay, and then my back room is telling me I should talk about how the government shutdown affects other immigration offices. So it does not supposed to affect offices that are fee driven, but it will if the thing goes on long enough. Okay. I remember in 2018, 2019, immigration courts, for instance, canceled all hearings that were on the non-detained docket. In other words, if you had a hearing before an immigration judge and you were detained, that hearing was still on. But if you were not detained, it was not. I don't know if that's going to be the same this time, so don't assume that it's going to be the same. But that's one thing that could happen. Yeah, there's other things that that we don't know yet. We don't know how USCIS staffing will really go. We just kind of have to wait and see. So I'm not going to talk too much about that because I think it's an unknown. We don't know yet. It also depends upon how long the government is closed for. The 2018-2019 government shutdown was like the longest one ever. I think it really was. It was like 35 days. And it was crazy the impacts it had in America. I expect this one to be longer because it is in Trump's interest as a fascist to dismantle government systems and the administrative state. And it's real easy to do that if nobody shows up for work, if they're not being paid. So I do expect the government shutdown to go more than a month. I'm expecting 2 months. Hope I'm wrong. Please be wrong, Curtis. Okay, Sammy actually meant DV 2027. No, DV 2027 is not live yet, and we do not know when it will be live. And I think that entry period is going to be later than it ever was in history because they're probably having a hard time implementing a merchant services system that will be able to process millions of transactions for $1 because merchant service companies are not in the business of collecting pennies. And that's basically what would happen. Service fees are usually at 3.5%. That's 3.5 pennies on a dollar, and these transactions happening abroad in places where people don't even have credit cards sometimes. It's kind of a logistical mess. That's why DV fees are not typically paid in advance. They're paid when you make application at the embassy. And that's for a $330 fee. So this is a $1 fee. So yeah, the logistics of their plan, they're probably finding out that it's not as easy as they thought. Okay, Sammy says, I thought you were already in the U.S. Congress. I am not, Sammy. I'm here. I'm the owner and attorney of Ready Go Law, and that's what I'm doing. The election for Congress that I'm running for is not until June is the primary, and then November is the general of next year. So we got some time on that. Okay. Ahmad says, "Hi, sir. I hope you're doing well. I have a question. My family have interviewed on 10 October 2025. It's in 9 days. They received visa or not? Thanks and appreciate." Ahmad, I feel like you're giving me the least amount of information possible. I don't know their nationality, and I don't know their visa category, and I know nothing about their eligibility for the visa. So I cannot answer this question. I would need more information. Feel free to reach out to me, though. I don't charge for consults. You just go to Red Eagle Law. Here, I'll show you how to do this. If anybody wants to schedule a free consult, I can't believe I still don't charge for consults. Might change that soon, but right now I'm not charging for consults. So get them while you can. Contact us. Schedule an online consult. We do them in different languages, or I have a translator show up with me, but English is the one that I can do. I'm not bilingual like everyone here. So anyway, and then like you would click there and say, "Oh, I want to consult with Curtis," and you would pick the day that you want to consult. So like there's nothing available tomorrow, but there's still consults available Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Okay. Make sure you got your time zone right. Okay, Ahmad hasn't given me an answer to my questions for him, so we'll go to Omar. Apply DV 2027 passport. Is that true? DV 2027 will require a passport. That's because the Trump administration put in effect a rule that required a passport to enter DV 2027. It's a little strange because they did this back in 2019. It was challenged in the courts and they lost. And so the passport rule went away. So it's odd that it's back, but it's not surprising because the Trump administration is a little lawless when it comes to preventing immigration. Okay, Sammy says, "I already registered for the DV 2026 lawsuit. When you're going to officially open the lawsuit?" Okay, I know that word says registered. What you've registered for is not the lawsuit, but the interest list. That's for us to let you know when we're ready to move forward with the lawsuit. There are a couple different factors on when we will move forward. One is I want to see enough names on that. I need enough people interested in the lawsuit to make the lawsuit affordable for everybody. And then the second is I'd like to see some progress with some of our other cases challenging the travel ban, so that we can learn from those cases and implement those changes into that litigation. Ahmad says, "My family is asylum case. Interview on October 10th, asylum." Okay, there's no such thing as an asylum visa, Ahmad. So schedule a consult with me and maybe we could figure out what's going on with your case. But the two things that you've told me are opposite. You've said there's an interview for a visa, and then you say the case is asylum. People can only seek asylum in the U.S. from the U.S. safety of the U.S. from within the U.S. or at a U.S. port of entry. So it cannot be an asylum case and seeking a visa. Those are two different things. Sammy says, "Does it come with personal congratulations?" Personal consultations. Oh, you mean like um, if you hire us to participate in the DV 2026 lawsuit, does that include representation and consular processing? I haven't decided yet, but you can sort of cheat and just schedule a consult with me or email me or text me and ask me questions. Because if you just do that, I'm not going to charge you. So that's my recommendation. How about that? If you do want to hire us for consular processing representation, we generally charge $3,000 for that, with part of it due to start, part of it due after visa issuance. I put together a group of DV 2026 lottery winners to get in the lawsuit for my country, by the way. I appreciate that. Sammy, what country are you from? Um, I would love to know what country you're from. Omar says, time open DV 2027 win. I think it'll probably be a month from now, but that's just a guess. It's going to be later than it's ever been before. As you know, there's an electronic diversity visa webpage, and that's usually where we learn when the entry period will start. And right now it says, it doesn't say anything about DV 2027. This is the first time probably in history that we've got to October 1st and it still doesn't say anything about October 2027. So I don't know the answer to that question. Probably within a month is what I'm hoping. Sammy said Somalia. Great, Sammy. I would like to have plaintiffs participating in this group lawsuit from Somalia. I would also, since I've got you here, Sammy, I would also encourage you and anyone you know from Somalia who can obtain a second citizenship, like to Ethiopia, to investigate that, look into doing that, because unlike Iran, Somalia does not have access to the minority exception to the travel ban. So it's just going to be a harder path for you. And if you can get a second citizenship, that that's an exception to the travel ban. Okay. So lots of good questions today. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. And thank you all for coming today. And I will see you next Wednesday for Let's Talk Immigration. I think that'll be the 8th. The deadline. Okay, that's okay though. I will see you next Wednesday, October 8th. Everybody take care. Between now and then is my mother's birthday and my sister's birthday. So if you're all watching, they're not. Happy birthday. Talk to y'all later.